right, everybody. I got another very special guest for y'all. I want you to welcome to the show Ryan Cady. What's going on, Ryan?
How's it going, guys? I am excited to be here. It's my first podcast in like a year or something. It's been a long time in these unprecedented times. I'm excited.
I'm honored.
Not happy.
How's life been treating you in this past year?
It's been good. I worked a lot, and then I took like a vacation for like a week. That was pretty weird.
Those still exist?
I didn't know what to do with myself, so I just started working again. No, it's been good. It's nice out here. Really fun to get back and talking to people about comics.
Yes, that's why I started this, so I could talk to people about comics every week.
You missed it. You know you do. Like one thing about I know most people who work in comics, especially if it's their only thing, they're all freelance creators, and you don't have a workplace community. You don't have as much opportunity to like talk about stuff and meet up and talk shop and stuff. And it's really, people need to do things like go on podcasts and start podcasts and be in Discords and groups and stuff like that.
Yeah, I started seeing, especially some of the indie, like super indie creators I know have started to get like group meetups back again, which just brought a smile to my face that like guys are getting back together and just talking about the love of it and everything. Because I know that was one thing that was lost in a lot of the communities.
Oh yeah, I mean, a year away. I mean, you're so disjointed from seeing your work in people's hands and like talking to people about it and talking to your friends about their work and new work and stuff. That removal is really hard. That lack of like community.
Yeah, and hopefully we can get cons back soon. I know they're slowly coming out, but I don't know. I went to one this year and it just wasn't the same. It still isn't the same.
I believe it. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Everybody get vaccinated, please.
Seriously. So, Ryan, it's your first time being on the show, and let's do the origin story. What got you into comics, and then when did you decide, like, hey, I can make these things?
So, I feel like what got me into it, I mean, for me, it's like always background radiation. Like my dad is like a cool surfer guy, but he always had comics kind of just around reading. He was like, like 90s trade paperbacks and stuff like that. He would pick them up randomly. So there'd always be like he'd be done with it and I'd get to read it. So I was always kind of like adjacent into it. And obviously, I was of the right age to not, to really love the DC cartoons, Batman, obviously, and like the Justice League cartoon and all that stuff. Big energy there.
So we grew up around the same time.
Yeah. I'm like, that stuff's really formative. And then in terms of like getting into it, I always kind of was, trying to be a writer and wanted to do writing in addition to like, paths and stuff as you grow up. And when New 52 launched, I was at that time, like I was really trying really earnestly to like make writing my thing. And there were all the local comic shops around me were having store signings, and all my friends were getting back into collecting single issues again. And I started to, meet creators who were like on the come up and making this their full-time gig, with that sort of like reinvigorated single issue energy around me and like where I was living and stuff at the time. And I was like, this is a job. Like you could write comics. That could be the writing that I do. And it like sort of felt like a duh. Like this was what I'd been wanting to create medium wise for years. So I just sort of like threw myself into it. I went to every comic book company that I could conceivably ever drive to, and I emailed them and I talked to reps and I tried to get I wanted to be an intern, and eventually I interned at Top Cow. Somebody, Betsy Gagnon, who worked there at the time, she was an editor, she got back to me and I got an internship there, and I just sort of hung around, and I was an intern and an editorial assistant, and the whole time I was like trying to put out indie comics or writing in anthologies and things, and then I just sort of have been slowly doing that. And my first my first all my first work really was for Top Cow or other companies like that. Like I did Magdalena, Teeny Howard and I co-wrote that. That was like my first real series, and then Infinite Dark, my creator owned there, Image.
I'm gonna forget who it was, but I recently talked to somebody else who came up in that same time with Top Cow, and it's gonna kill me that I forget. But it's interesting to see a bunch of you coming out of Top Cow creators that I'm really enjoying.
I feel I talk about it a lot, but that the year that I was like, I think 2014 or 2015 was when I was first put on to like assist or whatever when Top Gun does that talent hunt. And I mean, there's a year, I mean, 2014, 2015, those 2 years that they did it. I mean, Steve Fox, Phil Seavey, Megan Wong.
That's what it was. Phil Seavey.
Yeah, amazing guy.
Yep.
I mean, these are some like, I mean, I could go down the list if I like pulled up and I'd be like, it's all people that are like phenomenal. Isaac Goodhart, like so many people that have come up and done so much and are rising. And it's like really cool to see that incubator, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny you brought up New 52. Dude, New 52 gets so much slack in the community, but it doesn't get the credit for getting so much of us back into the grind. Like, I was strictly a Marvel guy before then, and then New 52 hit, and I'm like, yeah, let's check out some of this DC stuff. What do they got going on? And fell in love with a bunch of characters through it.
Yeah, it really, I mean, I think, thank you for saying that. Like, I think New 52 gets a lot of hate, and I it's so silly to me, because, I mean, again, it really is what revitalized for me, it what made me be like, yeah, I do want to do this. I see this as a job. I see that this is like there's an invigoration in the community. And like, legitimately, I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, it was, I hear retailers and fans and even creators talking about how it accomplished nothing. And I'm like, well, when New 52 came out, I can think of like 10 people who had given up on collecting single issues who were like, oh, I'm going to start doing that again. So me included.
I can think of a few creators who came out of it with some pretty great stuff. Scott Snyder.
All stepping. I get the criticism, but like, yeah, it is all stepping stones. It brought out some great stuff.
Yeah, it's just great to find a way for these companies to find new readers come back in, or come in fresh. Because I know plenty of people. My buddy opened a comic shop right before New 52. It's probably a year before it hit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he saw the surge of his business come. Like, and people who's still there to this day.
Oh, yeah.
That had never read comics before. We're just like, oh, let's see what this is all about.
Yeah, and we all hem and haw about like, oh, we're going back to number one. We're going back to number one. And I mean, however you feel about that in specific instances or whatever, like, I don't think you can deny that New 52 was good. That did a good thing and a lot of good things. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I don't know. I don't know about money and long-term things. I just write my little stories.
Yeah, all I know is I got some cool books out of it. But so you make it a Top Cow, and you start doing a few independent stuff, and that's you said that's where Infinite Dark comes from.
Yeah. I had quit. I didn't do Infinite Dark until I left Top Cow editorially. I had moved from. I left Southern California to live in New York for a little while, and while I was there, I was like working on some stuff, and Magdalena was coming out, and Top Cow let me pitch again on creator-owned stuff, and they liked Infinite Dark, and so that was sort of me and Andrea Muti doing space horror. It was like my first creator-owned, but at the same time, that was when I started working on stuff more in sincerity or full-time, just writing.
Yeah, because I think that's the first time I saw your name in print, because Andrea Muti was the artist on that, right? You said that. Yeah, that's no offense to you. That's probably why I picked that book up, because I love his work.
It was. I mean, it was a first. Unless you were like a Top Cow universe fan, you would not have read or noticed anything I had done until then. That's I don't take no ego there. And I was lucky to work with Andrea. That was amazing. His work on that was genius, and I feel really lucky.
Yeah, he's such an underrated artist. I love his work. So you go on from that. I mean, I see you've worked all over the place on different little things here and there. But what I'd like to kind of focus on is when did you make the move to Marvel?
So my first Marvel thing, the whole time I was in New York, I was just like probably a really annoying terror to like Marvel and DC editors. I was not like luckily there were DC editors living in New York at the time, and I wasn't like going to the offices and bothering these people in person. But I was like, I was like one of those guys who like emails editors like once every month or two or a couple months, be like, here's what I've been working on, boy, I'd love more. Which you got to find a balance, and you get older and you get less annoying.
Yeah.
But the first thing I got was it was a month or two after I moved back away from New York that I got a contact, and I got to do an Old Man Logan in one of the annuals. They wanted like an Old Man Punisher short, and me and Hayden Christensen, Jesus Christ, no, Hayden Sherman.
There was gonna be questions after
I
Christensen.
know. I like Star Wars a lot.
Does he hate sand as much as he says?
It's raw, it's coarse, it's dry, it's everywhere. Wow, I'm so sorry to both Haydens. That's an unflattering comparison for both Haydens. I was watching Revenge of the Sith last night. No, in Sherman, I got to do this Old Man Punisher short. It was like 12 pages, I think. In the background of like the Old Man Logan annual, and again, me getting blessed with artists. Hayden is a genius. I have it. Is it weird if I move the laptop? I can show the page. It's very silly.
Oh, feel free.
I have. Is it visible? Is this?
Yep.
This grid here, this like 14 panel grid. We did the script and everything was coming in, and I was like, oh, I really want to do a 9-panel grid because they're in vogue and I want to be cool, and I want to be a big grown-up writer. And my editor was like, hey, maybe let Hayden decide the pacing for this page. My editor was like, a 9-panel grid, it might be too busy, might be too much. Hayden's work is very detailed, blah blah blah. And I'm like, that's totally fair. I'll be like, do a fight scene, here's some ideas, as many panels as you want. If 9 is too much, I understand. And Hayden turns around this grid with he turns out this layout with 14 panels, and he goes, yeah, or they go, yeah, I could fit it all in there. And I was like, you were right, editor. 9-panel grid was not the right call here. 14. They're so, and I mean, their work since on Wasted Space, and they did one chapter in the Sublime graphic novel that we just put out at Z2 a few months ago, or a month or two ago, and they did some incredible stuff with layout. I mean, just a storytelling genius. So I was very lucky that was my first Marvel gig, and from there I did a couple. I did a Venom single issue, an annual with Simone. Who's on We Only Find Them When They're Dead now. So that was also another. I just got lucky with artists. I'm just some like pleasant chump over here. Then I did like the Brute Force 6-pager with David Baldion, which is like one of the funnest things I've ever worked on. See, like every time I name one of these guys, it's like a murderer's row of really talented artists that I just get lucky enough to work with.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get to that one shot, but yeah, I mean, I don't want to say lucky because I know you worked hard, but you have been kind of lucky at Marvel to be in like big moments. Even like Old Man Logan was a big deal when it was happening. You got involved with Venom during Donnie's. I mean, you did stuff with Heroes Reborn.
Oh man, that
was going on.
That was so fun. I mean, that feels like a long time ago, but I guess that was just this past May. Yeah, and then I've done DC stuff as well. Obviously, I don't know if you want to do that.
Yeah.
Is that a separate? I don't know your structure.
No, it's fine if you want to move over to that too.
No. I was like chronologically. I was trying to remember when I did the talent. I guess I was living in New York when I was in the class for the DC Talent Workshop. So that would have been before I actually got Marvel work. I was in the DC's talent development workshop with Scott Snyder that they do all over it was all over Skype. This was 2016, I think.
Oh wow.
I don't know. Yeah, but it was me. That year the writers were Mags Visaggio, Sonia Anwar, Joe Esposito, Philip Kennedy Johnson, Robert Jeffrey, and is that all? And then me? Am I the last one? Yeah.
It's a rule on this show. Philip Kennedy Johnson is the superstar known as Philip Kennedy Johnson.
I call him. He is amazing. Brilliant writer, phenomenal dad, kind guy. And PKJ is a very fun initial to say. I want his success to rise only because it's really nice to be like, oh, you know PKJ? That guy rules.
I don't want it to come off as like trying to talk about another writer while I'm talking to you, but yeah, Philip's been a guy I've been a huge fan of for a while. Like everything he's been doing, from Alien to his Superman stuff to Last God when he was doing it, and I've just been saying like that dude is going to be a superstar. It's just destined at this point. He's too good not to. But
oh yeah.
But so yeah, you do that. What's their talent search like? I mean, do they work with you guys to do something and try to develop you to bring in full time, or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I want to make sure I don't violate 4-year-old, 5-year-old NDAs here. No, it was no. You're fine. You're not. It's not a you pressuring me thing. I think we were the second to last year they did it, and it was for writers. It was just, it was like a short-term graduate workshop. We would meet over Zoom with Scott Snyder for like a couple hours a week, and we would analyze an issue or a series or a run, and we would break it down and talk about it. We would turn in our own assignments, and just sort of like critique each other, get notes from each other, sort of like do test runs of how a DC run would work and how we would prepare ourselves and pitch things. And then we all got to be in that. At the end of it, we all did a story for the New Talent Showcase. We teamed up with an artist. So Isaac Goodhart and I teamed up and did the Zatanna short. PKJ did the Batman. He got the Batman story in there. I don't remember who. I think did he have Amilcar? No, Amilcar wasn't a run. I don't remember who his artist. Also, I realize I'm like going way off base here and talking about every creator who I've ever met as if they are like just off screen and well acquainted with everybody's friends with everybody. I can't help it. I like these people a lot. They're all really lovely.
Sometimes I feel like in comics that's how it is, because I'll bring up somebody and they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm really good friends with that guy. It's like, how do you all know each other?
Maybe we're all just forming like unhealthy parasocial relationships with each other, but we've all been doing it for so long that they've all evolved into normal relationships somehow.
So that's interesting that, knowing Scott and being a fan of his work as long as I have, it makes sense that he wants to do something like that. He's a teacher at heart, but
oh yeah,
having guys come together and kind of critique their work to try to better themselves. It seems interesting that DC or any company would really put in the effort to do something like that. And of course, they got a few great writers and talent out of that as well. So,
no, I think programs like that, again, right? Like the Talent Hunt, the Top Cow Talent Hunt as well. Like I think, I see a lot of stuff online about like you should never do work for free, and you absolutely shouldn't. I think there's a difference between an exploitative, like everybody make art for this hashtag and a corporation will give the winner a gift card. I think there's a big difference between that and like, hey, email your portfolio to a company that you know and want to work for, and they might select your portfolio out of a big list to like really help get you a place in this. Like, I think there are good talent programs and there are like good workshops, and we need more things like that. If we want to foster new talent and like actually help people and prepare them to work in this industry.
Yeah, hopefully they bring that back. That's a really cool. It reminds me a little bit of going back to Marvel. They're like Young Gun Search, or what are they calling it now?
It's like storms or
Stormbreakers.
Yeah.
So just going back to Marvel real quick. And you did that one shot. It was a weapon. What was it called? Weapon World War III or something like that?
It was. I remember the title because it's like it's such a long title, and I had to like say it's Weapon Plus World War IV.
That's what it was.
Ben Percy wrote the main story. I can't remember who drew his story. I'm sorry, artist. It was like, it was man thing, but it was manslaughter. It was like Man Thing with the big guns. And then David Baldeon and I did the brute force backup story.
And that was one of my favorite things of that year because just so we were getting into this Jason Aaron Avengers run where like Man Thing was kind of a part of it, and then we had this one shot, and it was this weird like wacky thing with Man Thing doing what he was doing, and then I got to it, and I'm just like, "There's brute force in this? What is going on? I love this. So why brute force?"
So Chris Robinson was the editor at Marvel I talked to the most of the time. He's a great guy and a good friend, a very, very smart writer in his own right, for sure. And he was like, "I want you to do a brute force story. I think I get Dave Baldeon on it." And he was like, he kicked a few ideas at me and things I wanted. He was just like, just show them. We need to. He was like, we need to figure out a way to really balance out like the metatextual, like, I don't think he used annoying words like that, but like, brute force is silly, and we need to acknowledge that brute force is silly, but we also need to make brute force like fucking cool. And so we were kind of like, we had a few. We do the things in there where the animals. We were like, oh, what if we can't have them talk because that'll be too corny. But what if they can give like. We make it clear that the cyborg animals of brute force can have feelings and be sad as they fight eco-terrorists. And so we just wanted to do like a little funny thing like that. So we came up with the like red light, green light signals from each of the animals, and how could we use like a red light, green light to be like, oh no, Dr. Echo the dolphin is experiencing the slow loss of his hyperintelligence and sentience as he dies, and just squealing out dolphin sounds.
So great.
And we had a line in there that got cut, but it was like my favorite thing where you like I think the event at the time was like, let's explain all the Weapon Plus programs, right? Like Weapon X is Wolverine and Weapon 1 is Captain, and so we have a scene at the wrap. They were like, whatever the brute force action is, it has to end with the scientists talking about brute force. And so we did that, and we have a line in there where the scientists are talking, and our like implication was that an intern who had worked at Weapon Plus had made the 90s brute force comics like as a project to like sell the American public on the idea of animal warriors. And there's a line that got cut where the guy's talking, one of the scientists is talking about like, oh, we shouldn't let the animals die, like they're beautiful like creatures that are helping fight for the earth. And this guy's like, the 90s are over, doctor. He like throws the comic book away. I'm probably glad we changed it, but I love that the 90s are over, and I think about it every time I get to sign one of those issues.
So it's coming back to me. That was the reason I got into that was it was a Captain America centric thing because Cap was Weapon 1.
Yeah. Oh, and it was like Cap and Wolverine teaming up, right? Like exploring.
Yeah, and then at some point before Weapon Plus came out, there was like a thing in the back that had all the weapons, and one of them said brute force. And that's when I was just like, I'm following this to the end. It's Cap, so I love Cap, so I'm going to follow it. But as soon as they brought up brute force, I'm like, I gotta see what's going on here, because brute force is just one of those wacky, awesome ideas that I want brought back so bad.
It is the most like, these are action figures thing, and getting to like try and not like make that edgy, because I didn't want to go like edgelord with it, but like having fun with that and like taking that to like an extreme level was a blast.
No, let me be clear on. I do not want the Dark Knight Returns of brute force. Do not give me that. Stick to the script. Give me Captain Planet, but with animals that are sentient.
Totally.
And is it a fever dream in my head, or did they also have like the NFL All Stars in the background of that book as well somewhere?
Oh man, not in ours, but I don't want to say that the NFL All-Stars did not make a reappearance. Like I can't deny that they were not around at some point.
It was one of those things where it wasn't the NFL All-Stars because trademarks, we can't use that. But you saw it, you're like, it's the NFL All-Stars, guys. Look at that.
The football superheroes. I'm sure everything worked out for them in the Marvel universe.
I love great storytelling. I love like awesome comics, but this is what makes me fall in love with comics is this shit. Because where else do we get brute force and superheroes that are also football players and all this weird stuff?
Yeah, a unique medium.
So, and this sticking with my kind of you've gotten into good positions throughout Marvel. You then eventually get Winter Guard right around the time that they're making a Black Widow movie. So how did that go for you?
Well, that's the thing is, I love Winter Garden. I love the work we've done on it, and it's been really cool to see it come out. But, like, we started work on that book like over a year ago, like a year over a year ago. We it was timing it to coincide with the Black Widow movie and stuff, but there were all the delays from COVID for like single issue comics and stuff with printers, and there were all the delays with like the delays from pushing the Black Widow movie as well. And so it was like a scramble of like, oh man, I got to make this book come out, and like I got to maximize the timing for like continuity reasons and stuff. So it was like an exciting, in addition to like the challenge of writing a cast of like way too many characters, the like, okay, let's make this come out perfect timing wise. And we'll see. I mean, the next issue comes out in like 3 weeks, so 2 or 3 weeks. So we'll see if I did it right or not. I think I did okay. I mean, luckily Yan Bez will do she takes a lot of the heavy lifting off me. So
yeah, it's got to be cool. You have a book coming. I mean, it's a book coming out around the time of a big movie, and it centers around characters in the movie. So it's obviously it got a lot of publicity going into it. And then I mean, you added some other stuff to it of the Russian superhero lore that I love with the Winter Guard, and I don't really know where I'm going with that other than gush about it. But
thank you. I will endeavor my best to take compliments, not deflect all of them. No, like people love Darkstar. I love Darkstar. Yeah. But I wasn't ready for like the amount of people that like really love Darkstar, which is great. Because from the get-go, I was like, well, I like her powers because they're spooky and she can hang out with Chernobog. I have a very clear bias in this book. I'm trying really hard to give everyone all the attention, but I fucking love Chernobog, and I've decided that he and Darkstar should like hang out a lot. So I very clear, like, sorry, Yelena Belova, I want you and Red Guardian to get the attention that this book and the movie demands you get, but also look at the monster and the Darkness Portal lady.
Yeah. Even though it's before my time because I was born after, I love all that Cold War stuff. So the idea of all these like villains that are just Soviet copies of the American villains, it's just such a simple and awesome idea. And I do remember, I mean, I'm just going to title this name drop the podcast. When we were talking to Kelly Thompson about Black Widow, and this was pre-COVID, and the movie was supposed to come out. Yeah. And that book, and I think your book was supposed to come out along with it. And like, was there a Red Guardian book as well that was coming out around that time? Like, there was a whole slate of stuff. So I remember that whole delay. That, I mean, how did you guys take those big delays during COVID? Like you worked all this time on this. You're supposed to like, you have this perfectly timed to come out with this huge movie that's coming out. And then it's just like, all right, guys, like we don't know what's going to happen or if it's going to come out. But
yeah, I mean, it's kind of it's one of the unfortunate things about, not unfortunate, but it's one of the the hurdles you have to be ready for. I mean, Kelly and Elena did some masterful work on Black Widow and making their timing work. And obviously, like I was reading that book like up until like every single issue ahead, obviously, but her scripts and stuff, and trying to just like, okay, I got to match. What would Yelena? Oh, should I maybe not have her do this because in this issue of Black Widow that Kelly is going to have come out like 3 months before Winter Guard, this and this happens. So I want to make sure this and this, and just like really, not in a bad way at all, but like really trying to have everything in sync. And also like have timing make sense for like a movie premiere and stuff like that. it helps that like everybody else is like really doing a good job and kicking ass. So it's a matter of like I can keep up, but I get to keep up. It's not like nobody's slouching. And obviously Jason Aaron's Avengers. I mean, my third issue of Winter Guard is like I read the Jason Aaron Dracula issues of Avengers, and I was like, I'm sorry, we need to talk about Dracula for a second. I need
Yes.
to. we just need to do Dracula stuff for a while. I'm sorry.
Yes, can we all talk about the fact that Dracula now owns a nation in Chernobyl, everybody? Like, this is happening.
I feel like someone on Twitter, like 5 or 10 years ago, just like, can we talk about Dracula, please? Like a really bad like CNN headline, like no one's talking about the vampire who owns Chernobyl and turned it into a country.
Oh my god, could somebody do that? Somebody make the fake CNN report for me.
Yeah, somebody who photoshops, get on that. But yeah, no, it's that the timing and matching thing is up. I think I this is a little soapboxy and corny, but I'm not like a big auteur guy. I really hate this vision of art as like the great auteur, this soul person from their own like soul, like carves out this brilliant work, and it's all on them. And it's like that's so. I get why people love that, and I get why some artists feel like that, and writers and everybody. But and I'm using artists in the broad term, obviously. But that mindset is so like it's not true for a lot of works of art, and it's damaging to the person making the thing, because like it paints you as like a lonely, like all the work's on you. And what I love about comics especially, again, almost every work of art is like this, but comics, you kind of can't deny it in the obvious process of like this is collaborative. This is people coming together across the board to make something beautiful. I love Star Wars. I'm like a huge Star Wars fan, and I feel like Star Wars is a good lesson to be like, oh yeah, if the auteur George Lucas was the only person who got to do anything on Star Wars, you get not great Star Wars. But when you have a bunch of people coming together to make the best version of a thing, you get amazing Star Wars. And I think comics lends itself to that, like, you can't ignore that this is all of us working together to make things great, to make a better art form, to keep our stories in line with each other and lift each other all up, I guess.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with being Alan Moore and wanting to make Watchmen. Like,
no,
I get it, but most people who do Watchmen fail, and I think there's a part of that's missed in our industry now of why can't some things just be fun? Why can't Dracula have a nation in Chernobyl that he runs and the Avengers have to fight him, and then Blade's the sheriff? Why? Like, what's wrong with that? That's awesome. That's fun.
Wrong with that? Yeah, no, I agree. But honestly, like even if you are like going for Watchmen, right? I feel like that we have lost the narrative around Watchmen of like, or even of more work. I don't think Alan, like, I'm not going to put words in Alan Moore's mouth, but I don't think he would view himself as like, oh yeah, this is I just went off on my own and made my brilliant, great work. It was like I was responding to things at the time and people I wanted to work with, and ideas and collaboration, and like, my voice in that environment, I guess. I think that's like a really beautiful thing to acknowledge, and it's much easier and upfront and good to see when it's like, hey, let's just like work together, have fun. It's kind of like D&D, right? Like, it's people notice the collaborative aspects of it and compromise aspects of it more easier when it's like kind of goofy and everybody's doing stuff. But I think even when it's like, anyway, I was rambling about how great art takes a collaborative mindset, and that's cool.
Yeah, and the collaboration, I agree with you there. And
coffee's wearing off.
And I always tell people, just so me and you can keep promoting other people's stuff.
Yeah, by all, honestly, if that's what this episode of the show devolves into, where we just talk about people we love and how good their stuff is, I would be more than happy to have.
I always encourage people who are comic readers and are especially big Alan Moore fans. There's DC put out this collaboration. It's just called like the Stories of Alan Moore.
Oh yeah.
And some of my favorite stuff that he's done is when he was doing Green Lantern Corps, and he's doing these one-shot stories about random Green Lanterns, and they weren't like the craziest Alan Moore thing ever. They were in continuity. They were kind of just fun and cool. And I'm like, see, even Alan Moore like played the game once in a while, and he just had some fun and did some cool stuff. And it took that and some other things to eventually get to who Alan Moore became. But
yeah, and exactly, that's the thing, is that even works that are critical or more examining come from that place of having had that love of a thing and having a great passion for the genre and art, which is real nice.
yeah,
it doesn't feel, you can tell the integrity,
Yeah. So, Ryan, outside of your Marvel stuff right now, you also are doing this. Did you only do 2 of the music books that you were working on?
Oh, no, I've done quite a few of those. Obviously, I did 2 volumes with Poppy, and she and I kind of collaborated on telling kind of I don't know if you'd call them like sci-fi, like Black Mirror-esque stories, I guess. And then I did the Sublime sort of bio collection of like tour story stuff with a whole slew of, not just Hayden, but a whole slew of really talented artists. That's all through Z2. And then I also did, I don't know, it kind of, it came out at a weird time during the pandemic, so I feel like a lot of people don't pay as much attention to it. But Jason, Aaron, and I, Jason wrote half the stories, and I wrote half the stories, did a Sturgill Simpson, the country musician. He has that, I mean, country, he defies genres. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
He did that anime on Netflix toward the beginning of the pandemic, and so we teamed up at Z2, and they hired me and Jason, and again, like 10 really, really talented artists. Rosie Campe did a story in there with me. The guys from Batman Ninja did a bunch of the art direction and stories for it, and we just did like a prequel to Sturgill Simpson's Sound and Fury anime, and it ties into his album and all that stuff. So Jason Aaron did like the main story, 3 chapters or 4 chapters, and I did all the side story, 3 or 4 chapters. And that came out, I think, last spring. And then the last of the music book things, Elliot Rahal, another ingenious creator who I could sing praises forever, and I did, we did this anthology for Machine Gun Kelly with him. He legit helped out. That guy freaking loves comics. He has like a saga tattoo and stuff. We did it's called Hotel Diablo, but it's very like Twilight Zone-y. It's just like a group of anthology stories loosely connected by a sort of horror sci-fi conceit, and it was all about people in this mysterious hotel and stuff. And we got to work with some really great talent on that and make some good stories. And then most recently, exhaustively, the last one is that Morgan Beam and I are doing a short for the Last Podcast on the Left anthology they just announced. So that's a lot of music book stuff I've kept busy.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, people who listen to the show know I'm a little bit of a old soul, so I'm a little old man, get off my lawn on stuff. But the anime, I'm not even familiar with that. I did not know that was a thing. So
it was like a Netflix single production. It was like just one movie. But sorry, go ahead with your question. Sorry.
I was just going to say, what is it?
So Sturgill is like a huge anime fan. I think he was in a branch of the armed forces, I think, and lived over there for a while. And so he, while he's been making music, I think he's friends with Jason Aaron as well. They must all know each other. But while he's, made music, he did this concept album, Sound and Fury, and he wanted to kind of tell this sort of wild post-apocalyptic samurai anime story, and it's really cool. It's very visually interesting. Again, it's like a lot of the team people who made that Batman Ninja anime.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's all on Netflix. I mean, I would totally say y'all should watch it. It's really pretty and fun and exciting and bleak. But then our anime or our the graphic novel that Jason and I worked on, it is like a kind of a prequel to the main girl in the anime and her like journey of revenge and also how the world fell apart. So it's a good, not necessarily like half post-apocalyptic, half during apocalyptic adventure, um, with some cool samurai elements and a lot of like Mad Max stuff as well.
Cool. Well, I'll have to add that to my list. I know a few people that be right up their alley. And then so Sublime, when you did Sublime,
Yeah.
Was that just you doing research and stuff, or did you guys get to go and talk to the band and like do their whole story?
I got to talk. It was a lot of research existed because they just put together a documentary.
Yeah.
But I got to talk with Bud Gaw, drummer from the band, and a few other people. I've born and raised in Southern California, so it was a lot of like the book is a vibe, I guess. I guess. But it was really crazy to get to like talk to him and email other people involved with the band back and forth and like read like firsthand accounts and news stories and sort of adapt stuff. It is a biography, but it's more about like highlighting specific moments and like urban legends about them and like crazy stories about the band that are actually true or misconceptions and things like that, and some heartfelt like, oh man, here's how this song was made stuff. So that was like, it was a whirlwind to work on.
That's really cool. That's right up my alley. That's 90s punk rock ska. That's right in my sweet spot.
It is, and especially for that. I think it's got a lot of like, oh, I bet you didn't know when they met. Here's a story about them meeting, like No Doubt, and here's a story about them, playing Warped Tour for the first time and stuff like that. So I felt it was very exciting to hear those stories firsthand, and so I feel very lucky to get to translate them with, like people like I said, like Hayden and like Logan Fairber and people who are more talented than me, artistically, certainly. A guy I know a lot of comic writers can draw, and have an art background, but I have tried in vain for years, and I can barely manage like stick figure layouts. So I am always just blown away. I feel lucky to get to work with any artist, really.
Yeah, it's unreal when you think of something and then you're like, I have an idea in my head and I'm going to type it out and we make this whole script, and then somebody like gives you the page and you're like, that's way better when I was thinking.
Oh wow, shit! You should do this for a living.
I'm gonna take credit for this later.
Yeah. I'm gonna not remember your name on a podcast later and talk about
So yeah, the Machine Gun Kelly thing. I remember when he went on like, not that I watched these, I think I saw on Twitter afterwards, but he went on like Jimmy Kimmel or something was talking about it.
Oh yeah,
was that something that? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying, yeah, he did a few. I think he was on Seth Meyers and showing it off a little bit too. He did a few of them. But yeah, sorry.
Was that something that you guys collaborated with him on, or was that something that he like put together and he did a story on his own?
No, it was very collaborative. It was nice. Honestly, it's one of the ideal. I know like sometimes working with like a person outside of comics on their adaptation can be like a crapshoot, and you hear horror stories. But that was actually, it was really like, I mean, me and Elliot hopped on the phone with him quite a few times, and would just like go back and forth. He very much like had a vision for things, and he had like cool ideas and helpful notes and stuff, but he also like wanted to let us do our own thing. Like we would just pitch ideas at him and he would pitch ideas at us, and we sort of like refined stuff together, and there was no annoying meddling. There was like just the right amount of like collaboration. It was really cool, and I feel I'm like really stoked about the product. I have a story in there about like a bad pope that Amil Karpina drew, and I am just like over the moon at the art in there. I am like, oh, like I think it's an awesome book. I think we all did a really good job. All of Elliot Rahall's stories are very like heart wrenching and good. But even if somehow this book was awful and was the opposite of what it is, and I was not proud of it, I would still be like, yeah, but that Amilcar Pinna art really slaps, though. So yeah, another like, oh, I'm so glad.
Who ended up publishing that?
Z2. These are all these music books are through Z2 Comics, and they, they fly under the radar a lot, I think, because of the nature of putting out these music books. But they're like a really, really passionate bunch of people making, trying to really bridge the gap between how do we help a recording artist make something that is both a genuine valuable work of art and like cool merch. They're like, we will figure out a way to do both with comics, and they put out a ton of stuff with a lot of great creators. My buddy Trace Dean just did an all-time low book through them. I think they just announced they did that Anthrax anthology.
They did that one.
I remember
that, yep.
So they did quite a few. And other stuff too. I think they did like a Balmain, like the fashion company art book. They do a lot of like high end product stuff like that.
Interesting.
And they are as well. That last podcast on the left thing I talked about, they are putting that sort of anthology collection together, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah, so what's that one about? I'm not familiar with Last Podcast on the Left either, so maybe
okay.
Introduce me to that.
They're Last Podcast on the Left, they kind of like, they will cover serial killers or conspiracy theories or sort of like stuff that people who like those two things are into, cryptids, urban legends, stuff like that, and they will do sort of in-depth analyses of the history around these like people or events and things, and sort of cover them, and also sort of talk about the more outlandish stuff. What I like about Last Podcast on the Left is that there's like a healthy division between we are going to talk about this in depth and seriously, and also we are going to talk about the more like batshit absurd aspects that people believe about this serial killer or cryptid or conspiracy. And so Morgan Beam and I, she's an incredible. She did Family Trade at Image. She did Swamp Thing at DC, that like middle grade Swamp Thing book. And then we also did Wolfsbane together. We did the Line webtoon free webcomic together, which I actually can't say what it is, but I will have exciting news about in a couple months. I'm sorry. I feel like creators do that on podcasts a lot, and maybe it is perfectly fine, but every time I do it, I always feel like such a schmuck being like, well, I have a big secret that I can talk about in a couple months. It's like, who cares?
But yeah, listen, everybody out there, there's contracts and there's money and there's other things involved with this. So if you were to and I'm talking to my audience now more than you, but if he was to come onto the show and say like, I'm going to be taking over Captain America next month. Hopefully that's not one of them, so I didn't bust you. But
please, by all means, start that rumor, because that will be great for my career.
But that might get him in a tiny bit of trouble with Marvel and some other publishers, where they're like, maybe he can't be trusted with things. So I completely understand. Hopefully everyone out there understands as well.
Thank you. I hope so. I always don't ever want to be a jackass about it. But yeah, we did that Wolfsbane line webtoon, which is free on Webtoon, by the way. If anybody wants to download or go to their website or whatever and read an awesome book about the last in a long line of werewolf hunters fighting some really fucked up looking werewolves. Morgan is a brilliant watercolor artist who is really good at drawing. She doesn't get a chance to do it as much, I feel like, but she's really good at drawing fucked up shit, and it looks dope. And so we are doing a story for Last Podcast on the Left. Their comic collection is kind of, I guess, like you'd almost say like Mad Magazine inspired, in its sense of like there are going to be short stories and like articles and all sorts of stuff. We are doing a short story about how I might be related to the horrible serial killer Albert Fish, and how my family tries to pretend that doesn't happen. There's more to it, but that's sort of like the tagline.
All right, so they're taking all these things and then trying to make like kind of a multimedia like I don't want to say fanzine, but almost like that kind of style of book
yeah,
out
like,
of it.
yeah, like an accompanying, like, oh, like here's stories about this person or this aspect of this thing that would make more sense to tell in comic form, like either expansions or adaptations or whatever that like don't, it doesn't work as a podcast. It's like stuff that you can add in this media, like you said, multimedia stuff.
Have they done Sheep Squash yet? Are you aware of Sheep Squash?
I'm not aware of Sheep Squash. They have so many episodes. I don't. That doesn't sound familiar, but they might. What's tell me about Sheep Squash. I want to know.
Okay. I still want to be the first one. He's a half He's a half Sasquatch, half sheep, who lives down in, I think it's Louisiana. And I'm trying to make something out of it.
You're not like fucking with me right now, right? Or is this like a real thing?
This is a real thing. Nobody knows about it, and I'm just like, why does nobody know about this? Because it's so weird and stupid.
Why don't they
want
us to know? Who is hiding Sheep Squatch from us, the public?
Government, that too. No.
I wish I could believe that the government could be capable of vast and terrible conspiracies.
I learned a long time ago that's not possible. I've talked to some representatives in my area.
But maybe they can't because all the resources are spent on covering up Sheep Squatch. Like there's no time for anything else because it's all about Sheep Squatch.
That's why someone like me has to do it, because I don't gotta answer nobody. I just gotta make it.
You're a loose cannon on the hunt for Sheep Squatch.
Man, you're really cranking out some work over there. Did we miss anything that you have coming out?
No, thank you. Yeah. I mean, my big things are Winter Guard is the 4-issue spy stuff is coming to a close. The series finale is, again, I think 2 or 3 weeks, and that will sort of wrap up the story of them in this sort of time period. At least my story to tell with them. And then I have. Aside from all the stuff we just talked about, I have 2 exciting secret DC Comics things happening at some point in the next 6 months or so, which is like the least helpful of a scoop ever, but it's the most exciting it's the most buzzworthy I can get about them without going into detail.
Well, I mean, after I made that speech, what is it? Tell us.
It's Sheep Squatch. It's
Damn
Sheep Squatch,
DC.
Sheep Squatch, and Swamp Thing, and Killer Croc, and Solomon Grundy are going on an adventure together, and it's the Monster Squad of DC Comics, and Sheep Squatch is guest starring.
You just got to bring back the world champ, Killer Croc Morgan.
Everybody
forgets he's the world champ.
There won't be, but see, here's the thing. That's the twist about this Monster Squad book, is there won't be any fighting of any kind, whether in a ring, sanctioned, or just against superheroes. It's just going to be about the Monster Squad going around helping people, and then also trying to avoid getting caught on camera. It's going to be some shenanigans. It's going to be some wacky anti-Scooby-Doo hijinks, but I really think I can't keep this bit up. Nobody's gonna.
Because I want it to be real now.
Yeah, Greg. I'm gonna have Greg Capullo. He's gonna do all the. He's coming out for Monster Squad 2. Every issue, John Constantine will show up and do something. So
yeah,
that stuff.
We started this with DC animated TV, so I'll bring it back. I recently did a rewatch of Batman the Animated Series, and now I'm on Batman Beyond.
Ooh.
So Croc became like one of my favorite characters because he's introduced as a wrestling champion.
Yes.
The world champ, Killer Croc Morgan. And then everybody forgets that in like the best episode, the one where they're sitting around the poker table talking about Almost Got Him. That's what it's called.
Yes. Oh, is that the name of the episode? That's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good.
And everybody forgets that like Batman dresses up as Croc to infiltrate the poker game and just acts like an idiot the whole time, which proves that Bruce just thinks that Croc is a moron.
Is that really how Batman busts? I remember that poker game scene. He's in disguise as Croc the whole time?
Yeah, so at the end he just like unzips and then he's Batman. And he just says the dumbest things. And I'm like, so Batman just thinks that Croc's an idiot. Like,
A little
There's no other way you would
condescending.
act like that.
A little condescending. You know, that's the thing, is that, like, Batman has to fight enough dudes who are just big fucked up monster dudes, and, like, a lot of them have really sympathetic... Like, Clayface has, like, a tragic, sympathetic backstory, and, like, some versions of Solomon Grundy have, like, that really tragic sympathy. So, like, Batman is like, hey, man, I'm sick of fighting these big guys with more to them. What are you, like, a fucking wrestler? Fuck off out of here, dummy. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if a billionaire has respect for professional wrestling. Like, I like Batman. I think he's a cool guy, but I just feel like he does not respect the professional wrestling community.
Listen, I don't want to get super political here, but it's obvious that billionaires do respect professional wrestling.
Oh, fair.
We did have a president who was stone cold stunned, so
stone cold and if only they had repeated that antic. Yeah, I think we need more wrestling crossovers. I think Killer Croc should wrestle on page more often. He should enter the WWE.
Yeah, well, I mean, why not? I mean, Garth Ennis has him as a hermaphrodite who apparently has a child, and I don't know what the hell's going on in that book, but it's awesome.
I flipped open. I was in the comic shop the other day, and I flipped open to that first page, the most recent issue, where just the page opens with like, "You should suckle him" or whatever. And I don't remember. I remember who I was with, but it was someone who didn't know anything about that series, and they were like, "What the fuck?" And I'm like, "It's Croc, man. It's cool. It's Croc." Oh boy, it's good stuff.
Is a treasure.
It's good stuff. Yes. Yes, indeed.
I forgot. Oh, that was what I was going to bring up. So I got to bring up one last thing for you.
Please,
so you're at DC. You're in the minds of the DC people.
I'm in the...
Okay. DC's sitting on a gold mine.
Oh boy.
And I've been pushing this for years now.
Please.
So when Grant Morrison ended his run on Doom Patrol, I forget the lady's name, but a woman took over and she wrote a few issues of Doom Patrol. And she created the greatest villain of all time. His name is Codpiece.
Oh shit. Again, okay, so I'm not a big Doom Patrol guy, but I know what you're talking about. I know, but fuck. Anyway, proceed. This is gonna bother me.
He literally has a suit with a codpiece on it with a cannon where his cock should be, and it also shoots like punching bag arms. So if that
does
could
it
come
really
back,
shoot punching bag arms too?
Yes,
I've seen still shots of codpiece, but never.
So if you've seen a still shot of Codpiece, it's probably because I've shared it everywhere on the internet. Everybody has the one of him shooting the cannon. There is one with him with a punching bag. And then my personal favorite that I don't use enough is he had to break into a building, and so he was able to get a little drill to come out of it and drill a hole into the wall.
Though, okay, so here's the thing.
Just trying to advance your career here, Ryan.
That is exciting stuff. But all I want to say about that is that that's all shit Green Arrow can do from a distance, you know? So I'm less impressed. Now, if Codpiece if he had the range, can the drill shoot out? Because Green Arrow can, like, shoot a little drill or, like, a USB or a punching bag. Like, does Codpiece have the range?
So... let me start here. I mean, yeah. Green Arrow may be able to do these things, but can he do it from a unit that is connected to his genitalia? No. So I'm not as impressed.
He could do like a Dusk Till Dawn, but like, you know, an arrow instead of a crotch. Like if he did like an angle where he like had his leg up and he did like an under the leg, you know, the it's connected to the codpiece. I sure hope the video doesn't show too much of me there. I hope that video showed just the right amount. I don't want to.
Sex appeal is part of the show.
Well, you know, I don't want to trample all over your codpiece dreams here. I just what I want to propose is that perhaps Oliver Queen could moonlight as codpiece, but he's like a ranged codpiece.
Listen, if you want to reinvent Green Arrow as codpiece, I'm not going to argue with you. You're the writer here.
Look, I don't proclaim to know more than people who've actually written Green Arrow over the last couple years, but you know, every hero goes through their Nomad moment, or their Spider-Man No More, or you know, their first time as Nightwing or whatever. You know, like, why can't Green Arrow? He has to go find himself for a while, and he's on his like self exploring dark tea time of the soul, and that manifests in the somewhat inappropriate but very effective no holds barred vigilante that is Codpiece. He just has a little bow that is affixed inexplicably to his codpiece, and he has to shoot from a very sexy position. His angle is very erotic. It's Greco-Roman.
I don't need any credit. I just send me a signed copy of issue 1.
You'll get a special
thanks.
Ask. You'll get a special thanks. It's the least I can do.
But listen, I'm bringing this to you. They've only used them once.
Hey, really?
So you could reinvent Codpiece.
It's time. Break down the barriers.
It's been like almost 30 years. The world is ready for this.
The world is ready for Codpiece. I think so. Well, thank you. I will definitely steal that idea and use it.
So Ryan, thanks so much, man, for taking time. It's been a blast talking to you. Before we get into the outro of this, is there anyone else you want to shout out? Because we've shouted out everybody we love today, so let's keep going.
Let me think. Wow, now that I'm like on blast like this, I feel like an asshole doesn't know anybody. I mean, honestly, aside from everybody that I've tried to shout out as much as I can, I mean, really, I feel like you've had a lot of people on this show that I would have shouted out, and I feel like I would just say the nice thing to do would be next time you go to your comic shop and pick up your Marvel and DC books, try and pick up a creator-owned from the person who puts out the Marvel and DC book you like the most. It doesn't matter what company it's at. It doesn't matter like who they are, but like, give those things a pre-order. We need those to live.
Yes.
So
yes, we do.
We all want the big bucks. We all want the attention. Genuinely, like I feel like now is a time in comics when so many really talented, cool people are putting out work, and I'm excited for the next, not ascension, but like what the current generation of creators is starting to put out, both in the creator-owned sphere and at Marvel and DC. So I'm very, very excited for everything that's happening. But please, if you get a chance and you love something somebody's putting out, Marvel, DC, or anywhere, please try and pick up their creator-owned books, even if it's just the trade paperback or the first issue, to really give it a shot and shout them out.
On that, everybody, I will have in the show notes down below the link to Ryan's Comixology page, so you can see all the books that he put out, including Infinite Dark and all the other creator-owned stuff.
Yeah, let me take back my shout out. I'm going to say me, actually, and my Comixology page. Never mind. The money that I said you should spend on other people, take it to my Comixology page, please. Or just PayPal me and I'll send you a random book. And we'll go from there.
That's a fun roulette there. I like that. Send Ryan $5 and see what you get in return.
It might be a comic. It might be nothing. It might be a Marvel no prize. But the important thing is that you supported me, and I'm eternally grateful.
So everybody check that link down below. And Ryan, before you take off, where's the best place for people to follow you online?
Yeah, I haven't been as active on there lately, but my Twitter is usually my best place to be, at Cady, RYCADY. And then also, I guess, my Instagram is similar. But yeah, and then I have a website, but Twitter is the best place to reach me because, like most comic book creators, I have ADHD and I don't sleep. And so I just yell my terrible opinions into the world. So
that's what Twitter's good for.
That's what Twitter's
Thanks.
good for.
Thanks so much, Ryan. We'll have to do this again sometime, man.
Yeah, please. Have a good one. Thanks, man.